Deep in the scorching northwestern parts of Ethiopia, we find a dry desert known as the Danakil Depression. It lays well under the sea level, at some points reaching well below 100 meters. With the heat, drought, and overall inhospitality, it might be surprising to know something about the Danakil Depression's geological history. The ground in the Danakil Depression reveals something interesting about its past. It wasn't always so dry. Back in the Miocene and the Pleistocene, the Danakil Depression was periodically flooded by the Red Sea and isolated from it. The water dried up, but the salt stayed in large salt deposits which are now mined up by the people living there. There is an around 1 kilometer layer of salt making up the ground of the Danakil Depression. Why did these periods of sea in the area take place? Well, plate tectonics are behind it. Quite a large part of Ethiopia is a part of the Great Rift Valley, a massive area where Africa is splitting in two. This is happening under a very slow rate, over millions of years in fact, so there is no gain in anticipating Africa splitting in two. Another thing these plate tectonics created are volcanoes, leading us to the star of this video, Dallol. Dallol is a volcano located right in the middle of the Danakil Depression, and is renowned for its beauty and otherworldly appearance. Before we talk about how it looks, however, we should probably know how it came to be. The volcano itself is of an unknown age, but we do know when it got its fancy appearance. It was in 1926, following a phreatic eruption. A phreatic eruption occurs when water beneath the ground is heated by magma, lava, or hot rocks, turning into steam. They are also very violent. Since then, only one more eruption has took place, sometime in early January of 2011. The Dallol hydrothermal system is very dynamic. New springs are created and old ones go inactive in the matter of days. These springs discharge brines that are, in layman's terms, a cocktail of most stuff that could kill you. The brines are anoxic, hyperacidic, hypersaline, high temperature, and on top of that, it contains more than 26 grams per liter of iron. It is this iron that is behind the beautiful colors of Dallol, as different phases of iron oxidize and leave behind many varying colors. Unlike the Yellowstone springs, this process is completely inorganic. Talking about that, let's see what sort of life exists in these inhospitable brines. Some of the most extreme ponds have almost no life in them, except for a diverse group of extremophile ultra-small archaea. But this is under debate, as a team of French-Spanish scientists had something else to say. In October of 2019, they published an article in Nature, Ecology and Evolution, a peer-reviewed scientific journal, saying that there was no life found in the multi-extreme ponds of Dallol. There is also a life form that can be found in Dallol, but not in its extreme ponds. Humans. Humanity has been present near or in Dallol for quite some time. In 1917, work on a railway from the port of Mirza Fatma, Eritrea, to a point 28 kilometers from Dallol had begun. People had discovered the massive salt deposits of Danakil Depression and were now ready to mine it. The railway was finished in April of 1918, and it was around that time when Dallol itself was settled. Other than salt, potash was also mined to produce fertilizer for crops. Potash production is said to have reached about 51,000 metric tons after the railway was constructed. This success was short-lived, as not long after the railway was finished, the First World War ended. Now there were large-scale supplies of potash from the USA, USSR, and Germany. The mines were closed, but the people of the Danakil Depression continued to mine the salt, but in more hospitable areas than Dallol. There were unsuccessful attempts at reopening the mines from 1920 to 1941 by different corporations. Then after the Second World War, the railways were dismantled by the British administration. Nothing of them is left. Dallol isn't settled anymore and has become a ghost town. All that is left are remains of old broken buildings, cars, and machines. Business did eventually reopen, but in a different industry: tourism. Ever since the early 2000s, the entire Danakil Depression has become quite well known outside of Ethiopia. Dallol itself got some showtime in the Channel 4/National Geographic documentary Going to Extremes in 2004. In the documentary, Dallol is called the hellhole of creation, with the claim of it being the hottest place in the world. While this is disputable, it definitely has a very high average, averaging at about 34 Celsius over an entire year. Despite the scorching heat, hundreds of tourists come to the area annually to take pictures or to see it for themselves. However, it should be mentioned that Dallol isn't monitored or protected, which could be a danger for the site's sustainable development and a general danger to tourists coming to visit. But with all that, we can still consider Dallol to be one of the most beautiful and otherworldly places on Earth. Thanks for watching my video. Sorry for the long wait again. I wanted to make a video about the entire Danakil Depression, but that task was just too grand. That coupled along with the fact that I've been especially busy with school. I would like to mention the shield volcano Dallol, as it is another tourist hotspot, no pun intended. My next video will probably be on the Babylonian Enuma Elish, which I discussed in my last video. But until then, see you next time.